Okay, starting this week, we will start discussing around storage. Okay, so with regards to storage, there are a lot of different things that we need to focus on. So first, we need to understand how cloud storage is different from on-premises storage and what are the benefits that we have. And then what are the different storage requirements that customers will have and how we need to map the storage requirements. Then we will be discussing around the storage types, classes, and what are the different data transfer mechanism available within AWS. And obviously, like security is very important when it comes to storage. So we'll also discuss how to uh, do a data protection, not just at the data storage level, even when the data is in transit, we will get to understand what are the different options that are available. Okay, now, as I told, we will start with the comparison around on-premises storage and the public cloud storage. Especially, see, in cloud storage, the very interesting thing, or I would say the benefit that we get is around the capacity, right? See, when we are handling on-premises storage, we might have to factor what are the different business unit requirements, and we have to put together the kind of complete capacity forecast. And on-premises team, will have a capacity management team separately. So they will be focusing more on what are the future requirements, and we'll have to um, plan accordingly with the capacity growth requirement, right? So that is the number one challenge we have. So managing data growth is going to be completely the first challenge that we will overcome here. See, here also we have to definitely ensure that we are not completely dumping the data in the cloud. Even if, I mean, if you do that, then obviously like the cost will exponentially increase. So here also we should have a capacity management team, but we don't have to really worry about the capacity, because capacity here in the cloud is virtually unlimited. So we don't have to really uh, worry about it in the public cloud, and we can keep adding as much as data that we need for our business. And coming to the second aspect, which is availability management. So on premises, we definitely have to ensure that our data is actually redundant. So in the public cloud, by default, your data is highly available. The reason is here we have at least three different copies of data stored in three different data center. Okay, so we do have option to choose what we need to do, whether we need to store it in the same data center or whether we want to split them across multiple data center. We have the option to do that. So availability management, especially when it comes to high availability of your data and keeping your data redundant, we don't have to really think too much here. So let me just put it this way. Availability management when it comes to redundancy of the data. So you have option to keep three copies of your data in the same region or different region, different data centers, and so on. And we also get high availability. Even if one storage unit fails or one disk fails, still your data can be made available because it is kept in multiple locations. So if since the data is scattered across multiple data centers and multiple locations, the recovery is quite simple, much easier compared to your on-premises environment. So that is the second aspect when it comes to availability management. Okay, first is the capacity. Virtually, you get unlimited unlimited capacity, and you can just keep adding your data based on your organization's growth. And the next one is around the, as I told, availability management. So you say your data is all highly available, redundant, and you can do a quick recovery. And on the other side, even the management and maintenance of the SAN storage or the storage infrastructure, right? So that is another big challenge with your on-premises. So here we don't have to really worry about the physical storage. The physical infra is completely managed by AWS, Amazon. right? And if in case of any disk failure or any component failure, all these things are automatically taken care of, and even you don't have to worry about the firmware on your disk, on your storage, the updates to your firmware or upgrades to your iOS. So none of these things we need to take care of. So the drivers, the firmware, and all these things are automatically taken care by the Amazon physical data center team. And if you think about either expansion or if you want to have a storage in place, so there are a lot of time constraints, budget constraints, which we need to get through in your on premises. So here there is no delay in the public cloud. So if you need more data, you can just get it in the next few minutes. So you get data in next few minutes. So it's like you can virtually grow your data as and when you need, and you can expand it as well. So it's like online expansion. And budget is definitely a challenge. Even in the public cloud, we need to get the necessary approval from the business unit departments and so on before you go and do it. And on premises, see, generally when we want to move the data from one physical storage to another physical storage, or outdated hardware to new hardware, migration is definitely a little bit trickier one when it comes to storage. And if in case you have some NetApp file system or some hard-coded IP address or stuff, then migration of your data or storage is going to be little tricky on premises. But then in the public cloud, there are a lot of options. There are a lot of migration options which can fulfill different scenarios, different use cases or different scenarios. We'll just get to understand that very soon. And the main management maintenance, and as I told you, not just the hardware firmware upgrade, even if you want to do a technology refresh to get the latest version of your NFS protocol or any latest technology support features that you need, so you get it on the fly in the public cloud. So the requests are fulfilled very quickly, so you don't have to wait. And this is like in public cloud, the cloud storage is a fully managed solution. So when I say fully managed, as I explained earlier, the physical infra, Amazon manages the physical infra, including the connections and the devices, and even your iOS firmware, drivers. For your disks, there will be firmware and drivers. So all these things are managed by the cloud provider. So you just have to pay for the consumption, right? And whatever you are utilizing from the cloud storage, you just have to pay as you consume your capacity. And a lot of options are there in the public cloud to make your data secure, compliant. And obviously in the first couple of classes we discussed about what are the different compliance standards we get in the public cloud. So those are all applicable for your storage. So if you want to store PCI standard data or HIPAA critical data, so all those uh, certifications or validations are already available for your cloud storage solution in AWS. So you have options to secure your data both in transit, when the data is being transferred from one system to another system, or when it is at rest, kept on your storage device. At both this time, like you can have your options secure. And scalability wise, as I told you earlier, so you can just keep growing. There is no such limitation. It is highly durable. It is highly available. So generally, when you write a operational level agreement document or SLA level document, there will be three important aspect that customer will really focus on. The number one aspect is the durability option, then this availability option. So there are various storage classes within your Amazon storage when it comes to S3 or different storage options. There are different storage classes, and for each of them, the durability level is different. Even the availability also will change from category to category. So in cloud, see, availability and durability, people make get into a smaller confusion. See, simple, you can just keep it very simple here. For availability, data should be available when needed. So when you want to access it, when you want to put something, store some data, you will get it. So that's the availability part. But durability part is more aligned to your data redundancy. How much time you are storing it, and what are the different facilities, like whether it is different storage unit or different uh, data centers or different regions. So based on that, the durability, the more the number of copies you store it in different facilities, the durability, and even you can you'll get better availability also. So these things, definitely, like all these devices which you are talking about, the physical infrastructure, the disk, all these things are prone to failures. Okay, so you know that the systems can have mechanical faults, the drives can fail, even people can there will be a lot of human errors where data might be accidentally deleted. There will be natural disaster as part of it, your systems can get into problem. So all these things are available, and we will get to understand what are the durability level for each of the storage classes later. So AWS offers maximum of 99.99 of durability. That means if you are storing data in Amazon S3, for example, if you have stored, let's say, 15,000 files, okay, so one file can go missing out of that 15,000 file in 1 million year. So that's the level of durability that they offer. And that's just an example of how much durable the data is in your AWS platform. Okay, and availability is, the data might not be performing well. I mean, you will not get a very good upload or download or put get when you are dealing with that, but your data is available whenever you need it. Okay, but there is a difference between the production data and the archive data, so you have to definitely keep them in different storage classes. You need to have the right balance, so that the frequently accessed data should have to be kept on a very high class storage, hot tier, and similarly your archive data can be put into archive tier. So that the availability of your different data requirements is different. Okay, so between production data and the rarely accessed data, you can keep them in different storage classes, so that the availability will be different. Security aspect, so most of the customer expect the data to be encrypted end to end, right? Either it is the data is stored in the storage device, or the data is being transferred from one storage to another storage, or one application to another application. So the encryption is the number one thing, and also you get options to go and configure role-based access control. You have multiple options to do that. You can go with username and password or access key mechanism. So there are variety of options through which you can handle the permissions and role-based access control. So on a very high level, so these are all the important terminologies or aspects which you might have to discuss with your customer. So capacity management, availability management, your scalability, and the redundancy level, and how quickly you will be able to recover in public cloud, the ongoing maintenance of your systems, operational maintenance, or your run and support, and technology refresh, the time that it takes to provision your storage and make it available, budget friendly, data migration. So yeah, you need to be just have clear idea on how these areas differ from on-premises storage. Okay, that's a very high level introduction on how public cloud storage is little different from your on-premises. Okay, on-premises have a lot of challenges in terms of meeting the availability and capacity requirement, but in the cloud, you get all these things in a very easier way and with very high levels of durability and availability. And obviously, security is the ground zero requirement. So for your organization, there are a lot of different variety of requirements. So, and even AWS provides you different storage types to meet with all your requirements. So before we go into the storage types, there are multiple different categories of data that is getting stored. Okay, so mostly we will be dealing with the unstructured category for the first couple of weeks. Then we will move on to the structured category later. Then we will also discuss about the semi-structured and the quasi-structured data as we move along, right? So there are four different data types: unstructured, semi-structured, quasi-structured, and structured, unstructured, semi-structured, and quasi-structured. So we will get to understand these things in very detail. Okay, so what exactly is the difference between unstructured and structured, semi-structured, and all? So before we go into the details, we will at least get to understand a very high level view on what these options are, and then possibly we will get to discuss it later. So unstructured, as the name conveys, it is not properly structured in a particular schema or a particular format. Whereas when you go for structured, mostly like we are talking about relational databases here, right? Your relational databases, we use SQL to access those structured querying language to access those relational database, but the data gets into a structure that we define. So we go and create a schema for your data on what are the different columns and rows that will have, and then what are the different fields we'll have and what those fields should accept, whether it is a data or integer or varchar. So we will go and define the structured table in a relational database, and then we will start storing the data. Whereas in unstructured, it's just like a container, it's just like a folder under which you will just keep dumping your content as an objects. When I say objects, objects can be anything. It can be your movie files or audio or pictures, videos, any documentations, and so on. So all these categories are considered as unstructured category. There is no single structure that they follow. But when it comes to semi-structured, so it's not completely structured, but it has got some level of structurization. So the schema is flexible. So you get a lot of flexibility. You can just keep making changes as we move along. But then when we go and store the data in the structured database, we might have to make all the schema changes before we go and add any additional data. So there is a lot of downtime, and we have to deal with licensing and so on with the SQL databases like Oracle or MySQL or MS SQL. So you have to deal with a lot of challenges there. But then most of the business application, they depend on the structured way of storing the data. Semi-structured is very popular these days after a lot of social networking applications like Twitter, Facebook, and all these companies have started using it. So there are wide varieties of semi-structured category, which we will get to understand a little later. But for now, semi-structured, it doesn't follow any specific schema. It can be modified as we move along. And this is called not only SQL. Okay, it's not NoSQL. You should spell it out as not only SQL, because it doesn't use SQL. It can use unstructured querying language or UNQL. There are different querying mechanism that we can use for accessing the semi-structured data. See, quasi-structured data, it is very recent one where after all the recent blogs, tweets, comments, so a lot of social networking application, we are starting to store your data in a very different way. It might look like a transactional data where people are discussing, people are sharing some posts, sharing some blogs and all those things, but then it's not following a particular schema either ways. So quasi-structured is very recent format of data. We will get to discuss that a little later. But this week, we will start focusing around the unstructured category, and we will move along with the other categories in the upcoming weeks. So we have multiple varieties of data that might have to be stored in your cloud storage, and storage in AWS, you get wide range of options. So here, in order to store your operating system or application disk data, database related content, you have something called disk storage, which is what we generally use. So we have disk storage. We discussed about this a while back. We talked about elastic block store, and we also discussed about instant store earlier, right? And for your unstructured category, you need to choose the object storage, and we also have your block storage. See, block storage and disk storage might look very similar, but I'll explain what exactly is the difference. And you have this file storage, table storage, queue storage, and you also have these days your data lake storage kind of option. So as we discussed a little while back, so we are going to focus more around object storage today and on the next session. But we will also get to understand how it is different from the other storage offering that AWS offers. Right. So with object storage, we are going to have all your unstructured data stored here. So object storage can accommodate any kind of content, any kind of unstructured content. So it can accept your videos, audio file, pictures, documents. So documents covers a lot of different things, right? It can be your PPT files or Word files and all those things, and even it accepts any text or binary data, right? So object category, object storage, it is tuned for storing unstructured content. And if you ask me examples like your Amazon S3, Amazon S3 Glacier, and your sorry, your Amazon S3 Glacier, and then you also have a wide range of categories available, which can be used for storing your object storage. And if you talk about other cloud, even in Microsoft Azure, you have blob storage, which is used for storing your binary large objects. So Amazon S3 is the most frequently used one. And when it comes to block storage, so block storage is mainly for your structured content. Okay, so not just for your database alone, but primarily for databases, you go and use the block storage, and even for your operating system, you have your data stored in a block storage. So the reason it is called as block storage, the blocks are decided by the file system of your operating system. So you have wide range of file systems like NTFS, resilient file system, REFS, and all those things. So the file system helps you to decide on what is the kind of fixed size chunk that you need to have, and based on your nature of data, if it is multiple all small files getting accumulated in your storage, you generally go for a smaller block. And if it is a kind of very high capacity content that you are storing, like a zip file or a compressed content, you might go and decide a large size chunk for your data. So mostly the block storage, we generally access it from your intranet on your LAN or within your network, whereas the object storage, it is fine tuned for accessing from the wide area network, the internet. You can access it from anywhere through VPN or through local, or anywhere you can access this object storage category. And you have multiple examples, like you have option to connect it via SAN, you can connect it via local devices or iSCSI. Multiple different protocols can be used. But when it comes to block storage, okay, so sorry, yeah, when it comes to block storage, you can have all these things. And when it comes to object storage, generally we access the data through HTTP or HTTPS if you are enabling TLS, transport layer security. And you can also access it using different APIs or integration mechanisms. There are a lot of wide range of tools available which can be used for accessing it. So it is pretty much similar to your Dropbox or OneDrive, where you have a lot of integration options or API interfaces through which you can access it. And you can virtually access the data from anywhere, any locations. So that's the advantage of going with object storage. So you can also take an example of your Google Drive. So you are able to access Google Drive wherever you have the internet connections available. Similarly, your OneDrive or Dropbox, it comes under your object storage category. So comparatively, like the block storage demands a very high performance, where your applications, business applications, have a very high dependency on the OS, as well as on your the application content database. All those drives, it expects a very high performance in order for your business to transact in a very proper with very good IOPS. So here, cost wise, cost is comparatively higher. So when you compare it with object storage, cost is comparatively cheaper when you are comparing object storage with your block storage, right? But if in case you need a very high performance IOPS and stuff, obviously you have an option to go and get a very strong performance. So here, the performance aspect, it demands medium or moderate performance. It doesn't demand you a very high performance. So here in your object storage, you have options to go and add a lot of metadata. So who created it, what is the size, what is the type of the file, whether it is compressed, whether who has got permissions and all those things. So a lot of metadata information are available on your object storage. When it comes to block storage, is there a question, Rajure? Okay, else I'll mute his line. Okay, so there is a lot of metadata information that we generally have it for your objects, but for your block storage, all the management of the blocks as well as the metadata is managed by your operating system. So the OS handles the block access as well as the metadata access. It is accessed at the block level. So whenever there is a data being demanded by your application, so you get it accessed. So the reason is the block storage, the operating system and the data, the application that you install, it is frequently used. It is used very regularly. Your operating system has to be accessed on a very regular basis, on a daily basis. 24/7 access is really needed. But object storage, it might be frequently used, but most of the content, majority of the objects that we store, are infrequently accessed. And if you want to store if it has an archive, we have a different category called Glacier. We will see that information very soon. And here, the scalability aspect for your block storage, the scalability is dependent on your OS again. So different operating systems support different size of your volume or partition or whatever you call. So here, the scalability is virtually unlimited. You can keep storing data as much as you want in your object storage. So coming to file storage and object storage, see, mostly objects and files might look very similar, but they are a little different on how we access it and how we store the content. So here, file storage, we are accessing it using network protocols like NFS, network file sharing, or you get a network file system to access it. And you also have server message block on your Windows operating system to access it. Maybe let me put it like this. So we generally use NFS or server message block, or you also have your FSX file system through which you will be generally accessing on your, so you also have a category called Linux high performance file system called Lustre. That is also your file storage. So file storage, it is different in a way that how you access the content, even though it is again set of files that you are storing, but these files will be accessed using your network. Mostly it is on your, mostly on the same data center or same network. So we generally go and map it on your server. Okay, map or mount as a network drive. So you in Windows we call it as mapping the network drive. In Linux we call it as mounting a file system. So cost aspect, obviously it is moderate. It's not very cheap and it is not very high because you get wide range of options here also. If you're going for NetApp file system or high performance file system, then cost is definitely a little high. And yeah, so cost is moderate, but again it depends on the requirements, business requirements. If you want to store on an NetApp storage or if you want to store it on a normal file storage, the pricing will be very different. So infrequent changes to the data will be made here. So the data will be infrequently accessed and changed. And in your business, you generally store it for your home folders or the business departmental content will be stored here. Departmental data, home drive, your business data will be kept on your file storage. So we call it as network drive or network file system through which you're going to map it and then store it. So if you are asking about examples, you have Elastic File System from AWS Amazon, so which is a kind of Amazon proprietary version of NFS. So it is called EFS. And also we have FSX for your Lustre or Windows, or there are NetApp options also available on your FSX. So we'll get to discuss that in very details a little later. So you have multiple options for your file storage also. So table storage, it covers your semi-structured data, which is a NoSQL category, and it is for your semi-structured. So you have a lot of options even within that, not only SQL options. We will get to understand what are the different options available, like key value, columnar database, graph database, and so on. So we will get to see what are the different examples that we have on your key value, graph, columnar database, and so on. And queue storage is mainly for integrating two different applications. You have two different applications which is having its own content. So integration, or I would say message queuing system for your see, for example, you have two different application which want to talk to each other, and the source application cannot have the content stored on their side. Even for example, you are sending emails and messages, right? So the moment you send it, there is a in-between system which will store the mails or the content or the data in a kind of in-between queuing location. So these are used for data transfer between two independent application or two dependent applications you have. So Microsoft, there is a lot of tools available. Even AWS has got a MQ service. You have got simple queuing service. IBM has got MQ. Microsoft has given you HIS, or there are a lot of tools available in the market for message queuing. So there are a lot of algorithms there called message queuing algorithms, like first in, first out, or at least once delivery, and so on. So we'll get to see that a little later. So even the data lake will be discussed in the upcoming session. For now, we are going to focus more around your object storage today. And as we move along, we will also get to understand the remaining options. So your object storage is primarily for storing your unstructured data requirements from the business. So you will be using Amazon S3 or S3 Glacier for storing your object storage content. Okay, so object storage it's known for its virtually unlimited scalability. Okay, so that's the primary uh, advantage of object storage. So whatever metadata characteristics, it is automatically handled. And for all your modern application, or for your legacy application, so you have a lot of flexibilities and scalability option for different requirements. So you can also import your data from import the data directly from on-prem, and you can also use this object storage as a backup location, or you can use this object storage as a archive location also. And mostly after you store your content in S3 or the object storage, you get a lot of data analytics integration options. You can integrate with your business intelligence tool to run some queries and stuff to get the business view of what's getting stored here. So existing data stores, you can use it for integration with your business applications or business intelligence and do a lot of data visualization or data analytics. Okay, so we'll also see like how we can use the native options within AWS to kind of do a visualization. And we also have third-party tools which can be used for like even from Microsoft we have a very famous Power BI, and there are a lot of tools. Grafana is also supported in Marketplace in Amazon, and you also have the Kibana dashboard that can be used for certain cases. And you have this Tableau, which is a third party that can also be used for your data visualization and for your data analytics purpose. So file storage aspect, so it is a kind of if you have multiple servers that needs access to the same content, multiple users or servers or OS need shared access, then you go for file storage. And if you want to access it using network file system or network map drive, then we generally go for it. So if you compare it this way, SAN, local, iSCSI, this is generally called as a network attached storage or NAS storage. Your NetApp, or there are a lot of wide ranges of options available. So here we have this NAS. Mostly, as I told you, if you are looking at home folders for each and every user, departmental drive or business drive, and even some cases you can use it as a DevOps content repository. So you can use object storage also, but you can also use large repo here. For example, if you want to store the data and if you want to do some kind of scanning and security checks and all those stuff, so this repository can be very much used. And it can also be used as a media storage. A lot of organizations are storing some media applications or data and then accessing it from multiple systems. A lot of development environments can also be stored here on your development system. So but then if you have a very low sensitive storage requirements, and if you want to have databases or ERP systems, then you just directly go for your block storage. So block storage, I would consider that as a direct attached storage or a dash or a local storage. Okay, and this is going to be a very highly performing file system. And for your enterprise ERP systems or databases, you generally go and use this because you need a very low latency and very high IOPS on your block storage. So before we go into each of the categories in details, any questions around the storage types, or what is the benefit of going with public cloud storage compared to your on-premises? Okay, if not, let's move along. Let me also try to use a couple of slide decks here. Okay, fine, that is what we are seeing. So AWS, they offer a lot of options like elastic block storage for your AWS EC2 instances, your Lightsail instance, elastic file system for your file storage, S3 for your frequently accessed content within your object storage, and you have the Glacier where the infrequently accessed or rarely accessed archive data will be stored. The FSX for Windows file server, if you have an on-premises file servers which needs to be migrated to public cloud, you will be using this Amazon FSX for Windows file server, which is very natively compliant with your on-premises file server, Windows file servers. So storage gateway and the Snow family, it is for data migrations from your on-premises to public cloud. Especially Snow family has got a lot of wide ranges for different sizes of your requirement. And if you have a different amount of data, you can choose between a different Snow family. I'll explain these things a little later. Even the FSX option, I'll be explaining it in details. Within FSX also, you have multiple options. Even within a Snow family, you have Snowball, Snowball Edge, Snow Mobile, which is for different size of data migration. If you want to import your data from your on-premises, you can use either of this. So we'll see what these options are for, and we'll also see how to back up your data using AWS backup for some of your services. Okay, so cloud storage, as I told you, there is no upfront investment, there is no upfront cost. You're just going and paying for your consumption. And Amazon S3 is one of the very popular service that we have for your object storage category. Okay, so we'll start with Amazon S3 now, and then we will get to discuss the different options that are available. Okay, let me just pick up some content from here. Sorry, I'm using a different device today, so it's a little bit sticky. Okay, so Amazon S3, it stands for Simple Storage Service, and it's mainly for storing your unstructured object storage content. Okay, it's the object storage solution. You can access it from anywhere on the internet, so it's available for public access, as well as it can be accessed from anywhere if you have a network connectivity. And you store the data on Amazon S3 and you access it from anywhere. You can access it from your local laptop, your servers, or any system at any time. And you can retrieve any amount of data. There is no limitation. So on the fly, it's like you can access it anytime. You have anytime, anywhere access. There is no waiting time. Okay, you can access it immediately whenever you need it, and it's mainly for web scale computing. For your development also, you can use it for storing your application code, and even you can use it for a different DevOps tool requirement. The Amazon S3 is very popular and has been very useful for all virtually unlimited use cases. Here, the Amazon S3 provides you very reliable service. It is very fast, and comparatively for your object storage, the object storage is cheaper than your block storage. So I think I've already explained about the benefits earlier. I don't want to get again into the information, but just for your reference, if you want to have standard terms from AWS portal, you can just use these pointers. Again, it conveys the same thing: pay as per consumption model. You get to access it from anytime, anywhere. You can increase or decrease the data. Flexibility is there, and high availability, durability we always talked about, and agility is also there. You will get it on the fly immediately, and total cost of ownership will be lower if you are using it efficiently. But if you are just dumping the data, then there are times that you might you might have to spend more money in public cloud. There are a lot of options. There are a lot of storage classes and options which we are going to discuss and cover. Right. So coming to the next slides that you have got. Okay, Amazon S3, they are talking about again the same benefits which we talked about earlier, the availability and the benefits that we have. Okay, so we will just put it same thing: high availability, high durability, and obviously your security and compliance requirement. We will see how the storage service encryption and the different encryption algorithm helps you to secure your data when it is stored in Amazon S3. And we'll also see what are the different auditing and compliance requirement that is being given. So within your Amazon S3, so you have these many different options, but I think there are some additional options that are coming up based on customer different use cases. Initially, there are only a couple of options available earlier, but then now different business have different frequency of accessing the data, different technical and functional, non-functional requirements. So when as a customer, if you want to have your data stored and accessed frequently, you can go for a standard category in your S3, which is for your most regularly accessed content can be put in your S3 standard, and you get greater than or equal to 3 data center copy. Okay, so the data that you store, select as when you select S3 standard and store your data, at least it will have minimum of 3 copies of content stored in 3 physical data centers. Okay, so that's the primary thing with your S3 standard. And the intelligent tiering, it's a little interesting option that you get. So instead of you managing the life cycle of your data, Amazon provides you a mechanism to automatically move the data from high cost storage to low cost storage based on the access pattern. If your data is frequently accessed, it will keep them on your standard tier or your hot tier, so that you're not um, you're not hitting with you're not having performance or IOPS or latency issue. But if you are having the data accessed very rarely, you can just put them in the standard infrequently accessed category. So let me just do it this way. So you have this standard where you have the frequently accessed data kept, and intelligent tiering, it's mainly automated lifecycle management. So when I say automated lifecycle management, it is pretty straightforward. You don't have to think too much here. So based on your usage pattern, the data will be automatically moved from hot tier to cold tier. So when the data is kept in hot tier, you have to pay more, and when the data is moved to archive or cold tier, you will have to pay less. So that way, you will get you can do a cost optimization option, or it's a good option to do a cost governance. The interesting pricing or costing element is, see, you are enabling business intelligence, or you are going and monitoring the access pattern, the trend that you have on your data. So if you want to understand the trend of your data being accessed or data being stored, you need to have a monitoring feature or functionality available. And in order for that monitoring, there is an additional cost here. Okay, so there is a monitoring fee per object. Okay, that is something which you need to be aware of. And again, there is a minimum storage duration that you need to keep in mind. So if you are storing the data in your data standard category, you store it and you can just delete it anytime that you want. So you store, modify, delete anytime. Okay, so deletion can be done anytime. Whereas here, you have to have minimum storage duration of 30 days. So if you are deleting the data before the agreed number of days, there is a pro rata charges, or the early deletion charges that is applicable here. Okay, early deletion charges. So you have committed to use S3 intelligent tiering, but if you are deleting the data before the specified number of 30 days, you have to pay extra for your pro rata charges. It's like getting a loan and you're pre-closing it, right? If you pre-close it, then you have to pay additional charges for your closure. Okay, and similarly, you have infrequently accessed category. This is mainly based on your data access pattern. If you are not accessing the data on a regular basis, you can keep them on infrequently accessed data. And again, there is a catch there. You need to pay for minimum storage duration of 30 days. The reason that these two are different, so you can see that it has got the intelligent tiering. Data will be automatically moved. For example, you can say if data that are not being accessed for last 30 days, unaccessed or unmodified content, you can move it from hot to cold or cool, and then similarly greater than 60 days, move it to cool to archive, and similarly you can just say greater than 180 days, archive to deep archive, and then after 1 year you can delete it or whatever you want to do, you can just do it. So these automatically these are automatically done. That's the reason it is called intelligent tiering. Okay, so based on the data access pattern, it will move from one storage tier to another storage tier. So infrequently accessed data, it is mainly for data that you want to store for longer duration, like more than 30 days. And the minimum object size is 128 KB. This is another interesting factor that is applicable on your infrequently accessed data. So even if you are storing a data which is lesser than 128 KB file, okay, it will be considered as a minimum capacity of 128. Sometimes customers might ask, I'm seeing the actual capacity is something very low, but then the pricing for the infrequently accessed tier is little, the calculation on the storage level is little different. The reason is a minimum size of your object has to be considered as 128 KB in your infrequently accessed storage if the files are lesser than that. If it is higher than that, then there should not be any challenges. And you can see that there is a pricing difference also here for your intelligent tiering and the infrequently accessed. So there is a retrieval fees applicable for your infrequently accessed data. So, but for storing the data, it is very, very cheaper. But for accessing it, it is, so you can see that there is a very high difference of $5 per terabyte. So here in your standard category, you have to pay for around $27. Here you're paying around $20, which is way much cheaper. And for every terabyte of data that you are retrieving, you have to pay $10. Okay, so there is a retrieval cost applicable on your infrequently accessed content. We are not going to access it very regularly, so that's the reason you have a retrieval fee applicable here. So one zone IA, it's a option where you can save a lot of cost compared to your frequently accessed S3 standard. Against $26, you have $16 for your terabyte per terabyte, and the data is kept in only one data center, one availability zone. There is not high availability is not there. Redundancy level, so even though it is one availability zone, again there are 3 copies of data that is getting stored on your 3 physical different storage arrays on the same data center. Okay, so the data that you are storing it here, if the data is easily recreatable, or if you have options to get it created in an alternate method, then those are the content that you can keep it on a single data center. See, single data center is what we have been used to for very long number of years, right? On your premises, generally what we do, we have a local data center where you keep all the data, and if you want to have the data stored in a different offsite location, we either store it, take it in a backup to a tape, and then move it to a tape library, or you just copy the tapes to a different physical location so that there is an offsite copy that is available. So you can also do a similar thing here. Even though the data is actually stored on one data center, you can take a backup and then you can keep it in a different region, so no one is going to stop it. But again, here it's all cloud-based disk storage, unlike your on-premises. On-premises, you also get an option to have a disk storage. The tape options are available in your on-premises, which is not available in public cloud. There are options like virtual tape libraries, which is a little different from your physical tape options that you have in your on-premises. So the S3 Glacier, it's mainly for your archive data, the data that you want to store for more than, 90 days is the minimum storage duration. So if you want to store it for some auditing requirements or some historical access requirement, you can just keep the data in your Glacier and you can access it. There is a retrieval fees again applicable. Retrieval fees is again a little higher than your standard infrequently accessed. Standard infrequently accessed retrieval fee is very much around $10, whereas here you get it for $12, and the capacity that you pay for storing the data is very very less compared to your $26 in your standard category. You have to just pay $5 in your S3 Glacier. So um, you can select how fast you want to retrieve the data. You can just select minutes or hours. There is one more option which is way cheaper. Per terabyte you just have to pay only $2 per terabyte, okay, which is the cheapest option you have. This is called Glacier Deep Archive, but minimum number of duration that you have to store your data is 6 months. So if you are storing a data and if you want to delete it or if you want to modify it immediately or delete it, you can just go for standard or other category. So minimum object size for your Glacier categories are 40 KB compared to your 128 KB in your uh, infrequently accessed category. So there is no file size limitation in your standard and intelligent tiering. File size requirement minimum object size is 128 KB in your infrequently accessed category. In your Glacier category, you have a minimum object size of 40 KB. So you need to be aware of these important comparison elements. So S3 standard, uh, that is the default option. Okay, if you're just going and storing your data in AWS S3, by default it goes and gets stored as a standard category, and whenever you upload it or whenever you just do a put from your application, it is generally stored on a regular standard category. It is mainly ideal for your frequently accessed data. It provides very low latency and very high throughput, and obviously your availability is also very high because you are keeping it on 3 different data center, and you get durability is also very high. 99.99 of durability, 99.999 percentage, and then availability you can get up to 99.99 availability for a given year. So this is not calculated on a monthly basis. So most of these percentages that we are mentioning, so customers will ask this thing. It is calculated over a year. Either it's a fiscal year or a financial year, it's 99.99 for your availability, and durability is 99.99 of durability, and it is the comparatively most expensive one. When I say comparatively, see, if you look at the other options, it gradually reduces, right, from 25 to 20 to 16, $5, $2. So comparatively, like S3 standard is a little higher price, and this one, the infrequently accessed category, it is mainly optimized for your long-lived content but less frequently accessed content. Okay, so it is optimized for long-lived data but less frequently accessed content. So high availability and low latency, same as standard. 99.99 is the same for your durability, and availability is the same for your S3 standard and infrequently accessed category. Okay, so since there is a retrieval fee and monitoring fee, this is also a little costlier affair to store your data. Right, just a second. Just give me a second. Let me take some water here. Any questions so far from anyone?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah, I have one question actually. See,
Yes,
we are
Logan.
putting the data now. Suppose we have some hard disk, like our laptop we have, 10 laptop we have, we need to keep our backup, which is recommended. Like, suppose we need to access the data. After a month, we need to access the data. Within 1 hour, we need to get the data. Okay, we are putting in S3, which is a better option in this. Because deep archive and that, it will take time. Now, there will be some duration is there now, 1 day, 12 hours kind of stuff, right? In such scenario, which is advisable.
Okay, see, what is the nature of data that you're talking about? You said you want to store it for a particular
Some files,
duration,
yeah,
okay? And
yeah,
then,
particular duration kind of thing.
so whether you are looking at low cost or high cost.
It is a low cost kind of stuff.
Okay, low cost scenario. See, for example, if you want to put your photos, or for example, if you go to medical industry, okay, a lot of content will be taken in the medical industry, and even on your insurance or finance organization. Too much of documentations data will be getting accumulated, and especially in your medical industry there will be a lot of high sized files in your x-ray document, or some video recording of your operations, or a lot of contents are getting accumulated, and see, those are all needed just for any reference purpose or auditing purpose. Those are not very business critical, or it is not needed in next 1 hour or 2 hour. It takes some time, or we need we can tolerate some time for getting those data in a business aspect, right? So those kind of data can
Okay.
definitely go for S3 glacier deep archive.
Glacier
But
archive.
yeah, but then
Okay.
if you have a business data where the business users want to access it on a regular basis, modify them on a regular basis, then you go for standard. And if you want to have life cycle management, which is automated way, you can also do life cycle management in S3 standard. But then here you need to do a manual life cycle management here. So you can go and write
Okay.
a
We need
rule.
to set the time.
Yeah, you
Suppose
can.
after 1 month, go with based
Correct.
on the
Yes, yes, yes.
storage
Based
type,
on
right?
your company business data changes frequency, you can go and configure which one is the better option to save. I mean, you can just go with the cost optimized way based on your data access pattern. So if your data is needed for a longer duration, like at least I need to store it for 30 days, or at least I need to store it for 3 months. So you can just based on the duration that you want to store, because if you are going and deleting the data earlier, you are going to pay penalty for it. So they call it as pro rata charges or early deletion charges. So that is something which you need to keep in mind. And even though the cost of storage is very less, the uh, retrieval fee is very, very little higher. So you have to pay $12 per TB. That is very high, right? So storage cost is
Yes,
cheaper.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, retrieval cost is higher.
Okay. Yeah, it is clear now.
Yeah, no
Thanks.
problem. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Stan, Vinesh
Yes,
here.
yes, Vinesh.
Just wanted to know that for S3 standard,
Mm-hmm.
like you mentioned, $25.6 per
Mm-hmm.
TB.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So is that if I'm storing a 1 TB of data for an hour,
Mm-hmm.
$25 will be applicable, and if I store it for a day,
Mm-hmm.
so how that calculation comes up?
It's a monthly bill for your consumption.
Okay,
Yeah.
even though if I store a 1 TB data for 10 days, I'm gonna get a monthly bill of $25.
Yeah, it's a monthly charge. Let me come to that. Yeah, it's a good question. Let me just see. So there are a few aspects for your storage pricing, and let me just come. Yeah, to answer your question in a very straightforward way, yeah, that's like a monthly forecast, right? Even if you store it for a few hours or few days, it is calculated on a uh, okay, retrieval somewhere. I should see that. Yeah, just a second. Yeah, so this is how they calculate it. First 50 TB per month is this much. On your S3, see, this is different, right? So if you go for your Singapore region, as per the slide deck, the pricing will be little different. So it is per GB here, okay, and per TB it will be different. So whatever I have shown here, it's per terabyte, right, in the slide deck. And again, it is for Singapore region price. So price is different from region to region. And as I told you, it's like based on your per month for first 50 TB, whatever you are storing per month, you'll it's like a kind of cumulated, or you can just say it's a composite way of calculating things. And so for 50 TB per month, you get it this. So yeah, so there are varieties of pricing characteristics which we will get to understand shortly. Yeah, I'll explain it. So I'll come to that portion. We'll come to that part. Storage pricing characteristics. So any other question from the topic that we have discussed so far? Okay, I think I have to get used to this laptop. Fine. So any questions on storage classes? Okay, if not, let's move along. Okay. Okay, I'll come to the part. Okay, so coming to the slide. So there are many different storage offering, and we will see one by one. So this is your on-premises data storage problems that we were discussing earlier, right? This is done. So you have different categories. Okay. So I mean, storage is a location where you store your digital data, digital content, right? And type of storage we already talked about. Right, this is fine. Okay, so primarily these are the three categories that we need to focus when it comes to storage services. Your block storage, your raw data is generally getting organized on your EBS volume, and it is accessed through your operating system. The host file system is based on your operating system flavor, and you have your virtual hard disk or your SAN storage array that will be used for EBS and instant store. File storage, primarily there are two categories, EFS and FSX, and within FSX there are multiple categories which we will get to discuss. Object category, there are two primary, S3 and S3 Glacier, which is mainly for storing your backup data and the archived content. Okay, you also have one more category called S3 Outpost, which we will discuss later. So you have a private cloud. There also you can go and store the S3, and that category is called S3 Outposts. So if there are some data that you want to access it from your on-premises on a very regular basis, so you can also put it on your private cloud location. So you know Outpost, right? Outpost is private cloud offering from AWS. So you also have a S3 option to store the data there. Okay. So here in the public cloud, you really don't have to worry about the sizing. Okay, it's virtually unlimited capacity. But whereas in S3 Outpost, yeah, definitely you need to think about the capacity because it is on your private data center. So by default, I think you get 48 TB option, and also you get option to choose 96 TB option also for your S3 storage capacity. And on each outpost solution, you can have up to 100 S3 bucket. Okay, we'll see what is bucket and all. Okay, we are yet to get into that, but yeah, you have some limitation on your outpost. Okay, let's go and start creating some content, and then we will get to see what exact difference we have. Okay, let's see if there is any other pointers that we can pick up. No, I think we'll see this a little later. Okay, come here and let's go and look at the options. So under your storage, you have a lot of varieties. So these are the different options which we need to discuss. Okay, backup we will touch little later. So on how to create the backup vault and how to store your backup. So EFS practical, we'll see it after completing the S3. And then we'll also talk about the disaster recovery option that we have. And we'll also see the storage import export or the storage transaction options here. Okay, let's go and start creating a S3 first. That is the first option that we are going to discuss. So as I told you, S3 is the default go-to storage for any scalable storage requirement. Okay. Okay, when we are going and creating, let me just log in. Okay, the very first thing that you have to do when you go and work with Amazon S3 is to create a bucket first. Okay, so buckets are the containers or the folder where you go and store your data. So for Amazon S3, to store the data, create a bucket. Bucket is nothing but a storage container or a folder where you go and store your objects or data. Okay, and when you are creating this S3 bucket, you can see the S3 solution is a kind of global offering. It's not specific to a particular regional, it's a global service offering. And to store the data, you can select the primary region where you want to store the data. Okay, so here I'm just going and selecting the region where I want to store the data. So let's say I want to store it in North Virginia, and they are giving you two options here. Okay, so general purpose option, and they are also giving you directory option. So this is something which is available only on your express one zone storage option. This is mainly for faster retrieval requirement, but general purpose is the standard option which we were discussing earlier. So these options are pretty much available only in some of the regions here. See, if I go to Mumbai, I might not see those options. So those options are just coming on some of the data centers in the US. Okay, so you can store data in a general purpose storage, or like a high performance data lake, or high performance one zone IA option. So only when you have very low latency requirement, you can just go for this. And again, it is having less availability. Redundancy is less because we are just storing it in one data center. So we call it as directory option. Okay, and this one is for suitable for requirements. Okay, so you can just give it a name. Okay, and this name should be unique across the globe, because it is an internet based storage plus it's a global service. The bucket name, whatever you are giving here, it has to be unique across customers who are on AWS on that particular Amazon AWS. So it has to be unique namespace. See, for example, if I just go and say Stan, it might already be used. And sometimes there are certain words that it would not allow. So let's see, bucket name must be unique. For now, there is no error, but then let's try to create it and then see what happens. Now you might see a warning. See, bucket with the same name already exists. Okay, someone might have created the bucket with the same name earlier. So I can just say Stan bucket 0001, and then you can just try to create it. So we'll discuss the other options that we have. So you are able to create a S3 bucket just with the default options that we got it in that particular location. So you are able to create it. So not this one, the other one, right? Okay, and you have the options to go and upload the objects within that. So objects are the files that you store in Amazon S3. So whatever data you want to store, it is all considered as a object in S3. So there are some additional minimum requirements for your Amazon S3. The number of characters, the special characters should not be used, and all those things. But yeah, you will get to understand that as we move along, and there should not be any spaces and so on. So if I want to upload some content from my machine, I can also do that. I can also add a folder, or I can also upload files from your on-premises. See here, there are two things. You can just select the entire file. While we upload, and one important thing is, there is a, if you want to upload a file which is larger than this particular capacity, see, don't worry about this capacity. Okay, so earlier we used to have very less capacity, but now at least they have increased the size for when you have a single file which has to be uploaded to S3, which is larger than 160 gigabyte, then you can just go for Amazon S3 REST API option, so that you can monitor whether the content is getting uploaded, and even if you're using a CLI, you will get a verbose output, so that you can monitor what's going on, how much file has been uploaded, and so on. So that's the reason they are recommending to go and use SDK or REST API. I'll show you how to upload it using third-party tools or AWS native CLI option, but it is mainly recommended for file sizes which are larger than 160 GB. But lesser than that, you can just directly go and upload it. So let me just go and add some files here. So let me just put it. You can just have something. I will just upload a couple of files here. You can keep adding as you want, as many you want. So let me add some text file. Let me add some index files. Okay. So you can just keep adding them, and then you can upload it to the destination bucket. And if you want to change the permission, or if you want to change the metadata on each of these file classes, you can also do that. At each of your file level, you have the option to change the storage classes. So this is what we were discussing earlier, right? So some option, this S3 Express One Zone, it is only available in few regions for now. It will be available in other regions later, but for exam, don't worry about this, because it has been very recently added, and there might not be any questions around that. And this is for very high latent, high performance requirement when your data is most frequently used. And if you have a single millisecond latency, you can just go for Express One Zone. Rest all options we already saw. See, even there was a question from Murugan, right? So here, if you want to retrieve the data in a particular number of minutes or a particular number of hours, you can also go for Glacier flexible retrieval option. Okay, so there is a Glacier instant retrieval where you can just instantly go and retrieve it. See, but again, the retrieval will start immediately, but then based on the amount of data that you have requested, it will take some time. Okay, if you are retrieving 1 terabyte or 10 terabyte, or based on the data size, the retrieval time will differ. But then you have the option flexibility to go and choose when you want to start the retrieval. Okay, so there are some customers who are asking for specific SLA. They want to retrieve the data in few hours or few minutes, then they can go for this flexible options.
Yeah, got it, Stanley.
Yeah. But again, you have to select the right option while you are storing it. If you have chosen something deep archive, and then you cannot retrieve it immediately, so you have to choose the right option to retrieve it in a quick frequency. And there is one option called reduced redundancy, which is a very interesting option, because for not every data is critical for the business. There might be some non-critical data which might not be very critical to the business, but that data is kind of needed. So you can just go for reduced redundancy, which is much cheaper compared to your S3 option, S3 standard option. So you have these many number of storage classes available in Amazon S3. So I would say it is the most number of options you have here. So when you go for other cloud options, you might get 3 or 4 only, like hot, cold, archive, and deep archive. But then here you have at least 10 different options, which is very unique to Amazon S3. And here there is no minimum requirement for your reduced redundancy. And again, it's like per GB fees applicable. There is no minimum number of days required to store. Okay, you can create and delete it. Only it is a cost-effective option. So for now, I'll just go for the standard option, which is the free native one. And I can just go and upload it. So if you want to add additional metadata like tagging or metadata, you can add. Again, it's like a key value format. So you are also getting how much time it takes, how much transfer rate, and so on. So you are able to see that the files are uploaded, and you will be able to see each of the file size here, and the nature of file, whether it is a HTML file or a plain text file, or what is the nature of file. All those things will be available. You can also go and change the permissions here if in case you want to. You can also go and change the storage class if in case you want to change it later. Those options are available. So after I close this, So I can just go to some of the files here, and then you can also go and download. You can also copy the S3 URI is different. S3 URI is a um, unique resource identifier that you get to access from your application for your from your SD. It's like a network share kind of thing, right? You used to have double backslash server name followed by file name. Here we have the bucket name followed by the actual file name, and it is mainly to access it from your application, or if you want to have some code with the location stored, you can use the S3 URI. But if your application is looking for URL, you can go for HTTPS secure URL or HTTP URL if in case you want to have it. So you have the URL. This is different from your S3 URI, unique resource identifier, and you have unique resource locator. Okay, locator or location. So it's accessed through HTTPS protocol, but this is accessed using native S3 API. So you also have the option to download it. You have the option to open it on the console. You have the option to delete it, and you also have some more options where if someone is asking for the total size of some of the files, or if you want to copy the data from one bucket to another bucket, or if you want to move the data, you have the options here. And also you have the option to rename. And just a second, let me go one step back. So you have the options to go and edit the storage classes, rename the object. So all those things can be done within your S3 console. Rename the object, copy, move the objects. You also have the option to edit the storage class. And if you look at here, what it says is this action creates a copy of the object with updated setting and new last modified date. You can change the storage class without making a new copy of the object using a lifecycle rule. See, when you are doing a lifecycle rule, it is going to move the data from one tier to another tier. But then when you are editing the storage class, it is going to create a copy of the object. So this is something which you need to be really aware of, because some people I have seen, they select multiple files and then edit the storage class, and then they might get little higher pricing or bill. The reason is it is going to create a multiple copy of the same object, and you have to pay for both the category. So once you convert the storage class, you have to go and clean up the old one once after the business confirms that the data is applicable and available as per the requirement. So let me just copy this so that you are aware of this. So lifecycle management, it actually moves the data from high cost tier to low cost tier. But if you are editing the storage class, it is going to create a copy. Okay, fine. Now let's try to see what are the options available. See, you have option to convert it to intelligent tiering, standard IA, infrequently accessed, one zone. You can also reduce the redundancy. You can just have one data center. See, it is not one copy, it is one availability zone. Even in this one availability zone, you will have at least 3 copies of data stored in 3 storage unit in 3 different rack. Even if there is a rack failure or a storage unit failure, your resources will still be available. And you can also see the file size. Okay, so this is another important thing before you go and move the data. So before you move the data, you just go and find out what are the object sizes that are available in the current list of files. Okay, list of objects. If most of the files are very small files, don't change it. It is going to increase the cost, because you have to pay minimum billable size of See, if you're having a lot of small text files, just go and do a trend analysis and then look at the pattern and change it. So you can convert it. Okay, you can just edit if in case you want. So lifecycle management, it's part of your management option, or here you can just go and change it later. So I'll show you how that works. So under your management, so you can just go and configure this. This is like a kind of transitioning from high cost tier to low cost tier. Here the data will be copied over. So I can show you how that looks like shortly. So here you can just go and create a rule, and you can just say, I want to move the data from hot to cold, or like if you want to use the Amazon term, you can use standard to maybe glacier or archive, something like that. So if you just scroll down, you can just mention which are the files that you want to move. See, if there are very small files, okay, so you can just ignore them, because it is anyways, it is not going to impact your storage cost. But if you have very large files which you want to focus and migrate, then you can also select the object size which you want to migrate. Okay, let me do one thing. This is an important topic, lifecycle management. Even there are a couple of exam questions around it. So higher size files, if you are focusing and moving them, you'll get quicker cost optimization. So you can just better do that. Okay, so you can specify what is this minimum size you want to start with and the maximum file size you want to deal with. Lifecycle rule actions, you can also enable it. And here there is a request fee also, whatever the number of files it is modifying or moving. So those will be chargeable. Okay, so they are giving you multiple options here. You can move the current version. So there is a concept called versioning, where you can have, see, for example, if you are creating multiple application code, or even in your DevOps framework, if you are creating infrastructure as a code, you might have to have multiple versions of the same file in order to do a quick rollback of your environment or your business critical file. So you can also keep multiple versions of the same file. And in lifecycle management, you have the option to go and choose which version you want to move. You can move the current version or the older versions of the files. And you can also move the non-current version, which is the older version. So you can either choose between the current version or the old version, and you can also expire current versions of the objects after you move. And also you have the option to go and permanently delete non-current versions of the objects. And it will ask us, what is the duration that you want to specify? What is the number of days that you want to choose for your non-current version? And what is the newer number of versions that you want to retain? So you need to provide everything in the number of days. So let me show one example. Okay, so here move current version of the objects between storage classes. And I will just say from storage infrequently accessed, if the data has not been accessed for the last 60 days, I can add a transition here. Where to move? I want to move it to one zone IA, or whether I want to move it to glacier, or whether I want to move it to reduce redundancy. I can just choose whichever option that I want. And from glacier instant archival to glacier deep retrieval option also, I can just add it. See, after maybe 365 days, I want to add a transition to the flexible retrieval option. Okay, so I can just go and do add whatever transition that I want, and you can also read it in a flow here. Okay, so if the data is not updated for last 60 days, it will move to standard infrequently accessed category. Data not accessed for 365 days, it is going to move it to glacier retrieval. And even I can also delete the file if in case I don't want to have it. You can go and configure the lifecycle management based on your business decision. So whatever the frequency of changes the business makes, you can also go and update it. So let me just come back here. See, versioning option, you have to enable it on your properties. So here, if I go to properties, you have this versioning option. So if you want to quickly roll back to your previous version of the object or the file, especially in your application code, or if you are creating multiple static files, website or web application related files. So sometimes you might have to quickly roll back, right? And if you enable this versioning option, it will preserve the older versions of every single changes that you are making. And if in case you want to roll back to a particular date or a particular object, you can just go and quickly recover from it. So generally we accidentally we might modify it, or any unintended user action can modify the data. So if you want to retrieve it either based on the application failure or human errors, you can use the versioning option to quickly roll back. So by default, the bucket versioning is disabled. So if you want to enable it, you can just go and enable it. And once after you enable it, you cannot disable it. Okay, you cannot disable versioning once it is enabled, but it can be suspended for some time. Okay, you cannot disable it, but you can suspend it. So suspension is going to is applicable for the objects that is getting created after that. At the time of versioning is kept disabled, whatever the new files that you are creating, those files will not have multiple options. And you can also go and enable multi-factor authentication delete. If someone is going and deleting some of the files, it will ask for multiple layers of security. So not just your credentials, and beyond that you might be getting a one-time password, or you might have to log into your authenticator app and then accept the deletion. So you can also go and enable MFA delete to avoid accidental deletion. So that way you don't have to deal with this versioning. But if you enable it, you can just, let me show you how it looks like. I will just go and enable the versioning. So before enabling the versioning, I will also show you something. I will just try to upload a file. So let's say I want to upload this some 123.txt. Okay, I've uploaded it. Now so I want to try and edit it. So I can edit it on the cloud itself, or else like what I can do is I can just try and make some small changes. Oh, see, we have used it for versioning only. Okay, so 9th of December 2023. So I made some changes. Okay, but I have not enabled versioning yet. So now if I just open it, so you have the older content, right? Now if I upload another version, purposefully I'm going to update it. See, now it will overwrite what we have. So it will ask us the option what do you need to do. Okay, whether you want to change it, or it will go and check it's updated. Okay, so if I go and check, there will not be multiple versions of the same file. So if I go and check it here, let me just close it. If I go and access the file, so you will see the latest content which I have updated, but there is no way that I can go and use the older version of the file or the content. So even if I go to object actions or if I go to versions, I will not be able to see the previous version here. If I want to roll back or check it, I don't have the option here. So now I can just go and enable the versioning. I'll just change something here. Versioning is enabled. Okay, so successfully edited the bucket versioning. So the versioning is now enabled. Now I will just go and upload the file. Upload. So it has uploaded. Now if I go to close, if I select this file and then open it, I will be able to see the latest updated version, the number one that is expected. But if I want to have the older content before I made changes or before I edited, so what I can do is I can just go to versions option here, and then I will be able to see the current version here as well as the version before it was updated. So if I select this one and if I open it, it will have the content which is before the versioning was enabled or before I made the changes to that file. So if the application team or if the DevOps team, if they want to refer to the previous version of the template or the content application code, they can go and download it, they can go and change it, or they can go and delete the current version. If they delete the current version, then automatically the older version of the content will be taking precedence. Okay, now the previous version, the 1141 version, has become the current version of the file. Okay, that's how it works. So it's like a kind of snapshot, but it's not exactly snapshot, but it is mainly for quickly rolling back to a previous version of the file. So this option is called versioning. It is useful in multiple business requirement, even in a DevOps requirement, or if you have an application code getting created or infrastructure as a code getting created, these can act as a very good template. Okay, let me just go here. Yeah, go ahead if there is a question. Yeah.
Is there any timeline we need to fix for versioning? Like the versioning need to be available for 3 months or 1 year like that, or it's by default?
No, there is a default standard as you are asking. Okay, let me just give you that versioning. If there is any, I think there is a limitation. I remember in one of the cases we had some challenges. Let me just tell you what is the actual one. Just a second. Let me go and check in the internet. 1 second. So you guys can also check it. I don't see any timelines. Okay, let me see. Mm. I don't recall. I mean, there is an option to limit it. Okay, so there is an option in AWS policy where you can limit it, but I don't see any specific limit. I mean, few years back, I remember there was a challenge like 10 or I think 10 was the number that we had as a challenge earlier, but then I don't think it is intact now. but you have the option to restrict it. Okay, how many number of versions you want to keep it, you can deny it using AWS policy, but by default, I think you can keep multiple variants of the same file. But even if you guys get to know something from any documentation, yeah, let me know. A few years back, I had a challenge where we were able to have only 10 different versions, but I don't see any limitation now. Okay, let me just go here. So tagging, you can add as many as you want, and encryption, by default, your data is always encrypted, and that too, it is done using storage SSE, which is called storage service encryption or server-side encryption. By default, all your data that you are storing in S3 is encrypted by default. And if there is a customer business requirement where they want to have their own encryption keys, we can also create our own encryption key and store it in KMS. That is also available. You can choose from AWS KMS key, or you can also upload from your local machine and reference the KMS key here. So if you can just select that, you can also have a key uploaded in your key management service or key management server in AWS, and you can also point that out. It is again SSE option, and if you want to have dual layer, you can also do it. Okay, if you want to have server level encryption and SSE both, you can also do that. But double encryption is going to slightly impact your performance, so don't enable it just like that. Double service encryption is dual layer encryption is going to slightly slow down the performance and latency. Okay, so I'll also show you how to store the keys in KMS later in the security related discussions. Just let me see. Yeah, intelligent tiering, yeah, you can enable it automatically based on the default standard. AWS will move it, but if you want to just change it based on your requirement, you can also change it. And here, server access logging. So whatever changes that you're making to your S3 bucket, all these things are logged in. I mean, all these things are getting logged, audited. So if you want to disable it, you can disable it. So if you want to put it in a different bucket, you can also do it. See, generally, let me just go and enable it here. You can also select a different S3 bucket and you can start storing the logs. I'll show you how the format looks like. So I can just select this one, choose the destination, and then save the changes. Generally, we will not store the logs in the same bucket, but it allows it. But generally, we go and store it in a different S3 bucket so that if your source is getting compromised or if your source bucket is modified or some corrupted, you can at least have some logs available in a different bucket and do a troubleshooting. So by default, this is the format that the logs are getting updated. I'll show you how the logs look like. So this is something whoever is making any API level changes, if someone is modifying the data or uploading the data or getting the data, any API operations, either you do it from the SDK tool or Amazon S3 login, if you're using third-party tool, any single API operation that you make, it will be tracked in your CloudTrail. CloudTrail is your logging tool. So we will discuss that in very detail later. We have a separate session on that around CloudTrail. So if you want to track all the changes, activities, you can enable this. CloudTrail console can show you. By default, 90 days content will be available, mostly at the, let me just show you that. So there are a couple of things that you need to be aware of when you are configuring this, because by default, the management events are... Any question, Bala? Okay, fine. See, by default, if you want to create a new bucket and store the content, so you get all the default logs stored. But if you just go to this one second. So this is all management related event. And if you go to the next screen, you also have the other options. Okay, let me just say test logs or trails. So here is where you need to be very careful. Okay, there are three different varieties of event that you can choose. Some people will assume that everything will be selected by default. Only management related activities are tracked by default. As I told you, we will see the cloud trail in details later. But here, the management logs are captured by default, and the data related activities whenever you are performing something at the data level. Okay, instead of object level, if you are making some changes within your data, so you have to explicitly allow that if you want to capture the resource level operation. And if you want to capture all the logs, errors, activity, unusual trend, or if you want to enable anomaly detection. So if there is a different pattern, for example, suddenly some user is copying more data than usual, or if there is someone who is uploading more data than usual, it can go and find out the anomaly and then show you the insight event also. So there are three different event category that can be captured in CloudTrail. Okay, I'll explain that a little later. But by default, your management level events or logs are getting captured by default. Okay, and that too, it is available for 90 days without any additional cost. But if you are going and storing it in a separate S3 bucket, you have to pay for the actual consumption of your logs. So you can also create a event notification if some specific event activity or occurs. You can also go and get them notified on a particular prefix or a particular folder or a particular extension. If someone is creating a data or just uploading or doing a multi-part upload, someone is deleting a data, you can also configure event notification if someone is changing it to reduce redundancy or configuring intelligent tiering. So anything that any changes that they are making, so all these changes can be captured as an event, and that can be notified to a particular team or a particular individual person. Okay, it's just a few examples that I've referred here. It's not the complete example, but based on the requirement, you can go and configure event notification for a specific category. But for notification to be enabled, you need to select where you want to store your S3 logs, and then from that S3 log, you will be getting the notification. Okay, I'll configure. We are yet to discuss about the topics like SNS and all those stuff. So we have options to select different event options. You can send it through a simple notification service as a email, as a SMS, or you can also send it to a queuing service and so on. But we will see certain things when we are discussing the SNS topic. I'll show the same exact demo. Okay, coming to the properties, any other option that we need to be aware of? Okay, Event Bridge is again monitoring related. I'll explain the monitoring. So transfer acceleration, by default, it is disabled. So transfer acceleration is like using the Amazon Cloud Delivery Network, or they call it as Content Delivery Network, or CDN, or edge location. So by using this edge location or the Content Delivery Network, the transfer speed of your data can be enhanced or improved. Okay, I'll show you how the difference looks like. See, if I'm going and enabling it, I can also show you how you can test it. So there is a mechanism, transfer acceleration S3 test. So if you go to this link, you can also go and find out if you are enabling transfer acceleration, what is the benefit that you're going to get in terms of speed, how much speed you are going to get, and without enabling transfer acceleration, what is the time it takes for the data to be copied. Okay, you'll be able to see the difference, and if customer is really interested in enabling the transfer acceleration, you can enable it, or else you can just leave it. See, for example, here, so currently they have tried uploading a content, and the same file they are trying to upload through the CloudFront endpoint, which is nothing but your CDN or your edge location. So if the data is uploaded through the CloudFront endpoint, you will see how much, only 10% faster. Okay, but this might be different for different region. See here, it is going to do the test for every single region. Some region you might see a significant speed difference, and you can also give it a try. If you want to do your own testing by uploading, downloading, and copying multi-part files or a big larger file, you can also try doing it on your own. But Amazon has given you a easier way to find out the speed comparison for each of the region, and you can choose which one is better for you, and what is the difference when you are using accelerated transfer. For US West one, so we'll see only two or three. Let's not waste time in looking at this console. Okay, again, mostly it's like 10% faster. Some locations you might get very significant benefit. If you're getting a significant difference, you can go and enable it. So it will add up a cost for you because you are using Amazon CloudFront to access to send the data. So you'll have to pay additional fee for that. Okay, so cancel it. Object lock. Okay, so if you want to enable certain objects to be not modified accidentally, you can also go and enable it. It's a good option. There is a exam question on this. Okay, so if you don't want a particular object to be modified, you can go and enable an object lock for a particular number of days or a duration, and it works only in versioned buckets. Okay, if versioning is not enabled, this will not work. Okay, prerequisite is versioning. If you are enabling versioning, that's the reason I added the object lock under the versioning tab. Okay, once after you enable versioning, you will be able to enable the lock, and you can specify the duration here. Okay, so enable it. So again, it says permanently allows in this object to be locked, and they are asking us what is the duration that you want to specify. Okay, you can mention the number of days you want to have the lock enabled. Same like your versioning, you cannot disable, but you can suspend it. So this is another thing. Control X. Fine. So let me cancel it. You can mention the number of days you want to retain it, retain the lock. So you call it as resource lock in Azure. Here we call it as object level lock. And requester pace. Okay, requester pace is an interesting option where if you want to have provide service like there are, see, for a few days back, for a couple of years back, you might be accessing data from what is that solution? Not OneDrive. It's similar to that. There is a Dropbox, right? Dropbox vendor and all. They used to give an interface at the front for the customer, but then at the back end, they are using S3 storage location to store the data, and they are making additional benefits by giving you beautiful interface or additional development kit through which you can just upload with the multiple other options. So if you want to have the payment done by the customer directly, you can also select that option as requester pays, and instead of you paying that, you can also select who needs to pay for the actual data transfer. See, there is a data transfer cost, right? Whenever you are transferring the data outside of a region, you have to pay for it. Okay, so you have to pay for the data transfer outbound. For inbound ingress, there is no charge, but for the egress, if in case you are downloading the content, or if you are getting some files, so for example, let's say there is a application executable that you want to download, and if you are downloading it from a different geographical region, then the data that is getting transferred outside of the AWS Amazon S3, it is going to be chargeable. And if you don't want to take that charges on your account level, and if you want to make the requester pay for it, you can also enable this requester pay option, so that whoever is downloading or whoever is looking for that files can pay for it. So this is the mechanism that Dropbox used to have. The backend storage we used to have is Amazon S3, but then they, based on the new additional features and stuff, they will add some additional cost, and you can choose it, and the requester, whoever is trying to access the content, or whoever is going to take the content out, they will be paying for it. So this is a good option, and just by default it is disabled. Okay, if you enable it, then you can ask the requester to pay for it. So under the properties, you have one more option called static website hosting. This is an interesting option. I'll show you a lab around this. Okay, I'll show you how to configure this S3 bucket as static website. Any questions so far? Okay, also we did not take a break, right? It's already 12:05. Okay, sorry. Let me see. So we need to have little more focus around, okay, we need to discuss permissions, metrics. So we cannot complete the entire S3 today, because we have replication, inventory, and a little more options to be discussed. So yeah, even the static website also we can discuss a little later. So any questions around just the basics of data types, and why we need to come to cloud storage? What are the key points that you need to keep in mind when you're discussing with customer, and when you are talking to customer, what are the requirements that they have, and based on their requirements, we have just focused only on object storage today. And that too, within object storage, we have just started Amazon S3, and we have started creating some buckets and upload some files, and we are understanding what are the different storage classes. Pricing requirements we are yet to discuss. We will discuss it later. And we have started seeing some of the properties around S3 bucket, and we have few more options around management, and we will see it in the next session. So any questions before we wind up for the day? So we have a lot of more options to be discussed. We have just covered only 60%, I would say. Remaining 40% is pending in S3. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Stan, I
Yes.
have one question.
Yeah.
Actually, you uploaded all the files and
Mhm.
it will be in public, right? So it will be not secure, right?
No.
So to secure,
By default, these days, Amazon has changed the policy. Okay, by default, it is not publicly available. If I go and create a bucket, the default property, it says it blocks all public access. Few years back, you are right, maybe I would say 4 or 5 years back, we used to have public access for your S3 bucket by default. That become a challenge for a lot of business organizations. See, they might create something and they might store even business critical data there. So by default, nowadays, public access is not enabled. It is disabled at the bucket level as well as at the object level. It is by default disabled. It's not enabled. But a few years back, you are right. It used to be available as a public accessible S3 bucket, but now it's completely disabled. So if you want to explicitly allow them, you have to go and allow them.
If you want to access through internet, right, Stan?
Yes,
So
yes.
in that case, we need to explicitly allow that one, right? So
Correct,
in
correct.
that case, which technology we can use and we can access?
Okay, I'll help you. I mean, you can enable it at the S3 level, but there are a lot of options on how you can safeguard your endpoint by integrating it with some, for example, if you have a static website, you can also have web access filtering or web application firewall or third-party firewall to protect the data. You can also have some different encryption options that can safeguard your data. But by default, all the public access settings for the bucket as well as the object is disabled. You can allow them for the bucket level, or you can also allow them at the object level. I'll show you how to get this changed by default, but it's disabled by now. So even accidentally you create a bucket, it won't be exposed to the internet automatically. You have to go and individually select the settings and allow them. So any other question? See, you have interesting options like this. You can copy the setting
So
from existing bucket also. See, for example, if you have a similar bucket, if you want to mirror the settings or mirror the permissions, you also have an easier option to do that. Instead of doing the same thing end to end, you have an option to copy from existing bucket. So whatever the permissions or the settings that you have on your existing bucket, it will come to the new S3 bucket. Yeah, sorry, I did not hear the question properly. Come again. Was that a question or? Okay. So if not, we will discuss the remaining options, whatever we have in the next session. We will discuss around the static websites and the storage pricing related aspect. And also we will see, we'll also cover the remaining management related options that we have. Yep. Shall I stop recording? Any questions before I stop it? I'll be here for a couple of moments.